world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source, Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Alright guys, we're going to get into today's show. First, we're going to talk a little bit, recap the Ortega versus Korean Zombie fight. Going to talk a little bit about NFL football and the Patriots. Going to talk about some of the reasons why guys quit jiu-jitsu. And we're also going to talk about the new trend of BJJ schools using weight loss as a primary marketing tool. So strap in and let's go ahead and get into the show. Hey, what's up guys? So let's talk really quick about the results at UFC on ESPN 38 or Fight Island 2. Brian Ortega defeats the Korean Zombie to earn a title shot at Volkanovski. So I was a bit wrong in some of my assessment when I predicted or did my preview video on Friday, and I thought if the fight went longer than 2 rounds that the Korean Zombie would defeat Brian Ortega. This would have been true had Ortega not evolved much more than what I thought he would in his striking. His striking was really good. Particularly his defensive attributes have improved. He was blocking shots much better. He predominantly stayed in the southpaw stance rather than switching stances. He was very patient. He was more of a counter fighter, and I don't know if that's going to be his new style or if this was the game plan particularly for Korean Zombie. Couple of things to take away from, 2 areas where I think Brian Ortega could improve on is his dirty boxing inside the clinch. Anytime Korean Zombie was able to make it into a clinch or dirty boxing style fight, he was scoring and winning the fight. And Brian Ortega could have done a lot better inside there. Now, maybe that's due to Korean Zombie just being really good there. Maybe it means that Brian Ortega has a hole there. I'll leave that up to you to decide. The other place where he could have really improved, well, I really liked the entries, and I really liked the idea of how he used the threat of the takedown. He really could get better at wrestling. If he was a better wrestler, I don't think that he would just be a threat in the division. I think that he would quickly become the guy to beat. Okay, his wrestling, as far as finishing, his takedowns, they're not the greatest, right? I mean, his takedown percentage is not great. His accuracy on takedowns is not great. It would be nice to see Brian Ortega get a little stronger wrestling. I'm not even talking leaps and bounds. I'm not saying he has to be at, the Khabib level or, the Daniel Cormier level, or, I'm not saying he has to be there. But it would be nice if he were a little bit more efficient with his takedowns. I think that would make him much more difficult to beat. Um, and all in all, I think he would just be a much, much better fighter. Um, but that's what I have on the UFC Fight Island 2. This He's going to be fighting Volkanovski. At least that's what Dana said. So we'll see how that goes. I look forward to the matchup. I think it's a much different matchup than Holloway Volkanovski. I think it's a much different matchup than Ortega Holloway, right? Um, there's so much, they're so different in matchup that I could see a Ortega win over Volkanovski with a loss to Holloway. Like, they're just so uh, different. Now, I'm not saying Brian Ortega can't beat Holloway. I'm saying I could see it. It's a possibility because of the stylistically how they match up. Um, but it's going to be some fun times. It was a great show. Brian Ortega looked really, really good. Definitely a new and improved version. A lot of fighters say that, when they take a break, oh, you're going to see a new version of me. You're going to see the things that I've never done and blah, blah, blah. And they talk themselves up coming off of a long layoff. And when you actually see him, you're like, it didn't look that much different. You looked a little like you had a little more life in you, but didn't look that much different. Um, that was not the case with Brian Ortega. He looked much different, much better, and he was already good. Um, so it tends to make me believe that what he was saying was true. That he was getting by a lot by on talent, and not really taking it as serious as he should be, as other fighters do, as professional fighters do. So now with a more professional approach, uh, we should see him grow even more. So, and he's young, so plenty of time to grow, plenty of time to get better, uh, plenty of fights in his future if he wants them. So, it's going to be really exciting to watch him uh, continue down this path. So, that's what I got, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. All right, so was checking out some videos the other day, and came across a video and saw an article as well about reasons why people quit jujitsu. Um, you know, Hiron Gracie pretty much boiled it all down to um, expectations or belt chasing or however you want to put it. Essentially, people comparing themselves, from to other people within their jiu-jitsu community, and and being frustrated with their progress. There was an article that went through and it gave some reasons and stuff, and I found myself disagreeing with both of those assessments, and so I wanted to go through reasons guys quit jiu-jitsu. Reason number 5. This is the countdown. Number 5 would be financial catastrophe. And when I'm saying financial catastrophe, I mean like losing your job, um, maybe getting into a vehicle accident or some other type of thing that takes up money. Maybe your spouse losing their job. Something along those lines. Some type of injury or some type of illness with a household member or something like that that requires, all of a sudden the budget to really, really shift. And essentially, you don't have the money for it. Now, I did this as a countdown because the reality is that this ties into a couple more reasons that are more towards the top of the list, and also because it's a week it's a weak excuse. Very rarely is it really. Uh, it's an excuse and not a reason, right? Very rarely is it ever truly a reason. It's more of an excuse, and we'll talk about that as we go through uh, the next four reasons. So, reason number four, um, injury or excessive long recovery time frame, right? So, sometimes we get injured, whether that be on the mats or off the mats, and um, it takes a long time to recover. Let's say, we're competing and we blow out an ACL. You're talking almost a year of recovery time, you know, for the average Joe. Not talking about, the pro athlete that has, everything at their disposal. I'm talking about the average Joe who blows out their knee. Oh, it really hurts. Oh, I gotta, tap and move on. Basically, forfeit my matches. And most of us are going to be like, well, maybe I could walk it off. Maybe it'll be okay. We hope against hope that the knee is going to be fine. And it just balloons up over the next day. Uh, can't put pressure on it. Realize, hey, something's really got to be wrong with this. Go in, go into your doctor finally, probably a week later, and have to go through all the, you know, hoops that medical, people have for getting a recommendation. And finally, you get to the MRI, and, that's, who knows, maybe a month away from the actual injury. And bam, you find out it's a torn or blown ACL. And then you go talk to the surgeon, and the surgeon says, hey, this is what I can fit you in. And you get the surgery, right? And then you have rehab and all that stuff. So when you have injuries like that take a long time to recover from, many times this can make you discouraged, not want to come back. You find other interests or whatever. But again, this is towards the bottom of the list because this ties into other reasons that are much, much more important and that are stronger. Okay? And we're going to see what we're talking about as we move up the list. So let's move on. Reason number 3. Now, this is where we get into actual reasons. Okay? These are true reasons. These are more to the root of the issue of why guys quit jiu-jitsu. Belt chasing or frustration. This is where Hedon is correct to me. It's probably, third from the top. And usually, guys will quit because they think they deserve a certain belt, and they're not getting it for whatever reason. They're, they get frustrated. Maybe they gym hop. And let me give you a word of advice. Gym hopping, if you're a belt chaser and you think that gym hopping is going to fix your problem, you're probably wrong, especially because you mostly see belt chasing or frustration at the lower levels, right? You see it at white belt and some at blue belt. That's where most people are still belt chasing or have frustration or, by comparing themselves to other people or whatever. And they're not really enjoying the journey of jiu-jitsu for its own sake. Now, if you go from gym to gym, essentially what you're doing is resetting the clock with a new professor, right? Most professors are not going to stripe you up. They're not going to give you a belt uh, within 6 months or, you know, 8 months of you being at their gym when they hear that you train somewhere else and now you're training with them. They're just not. And the reason why they're not is because they don't want to put a color on you for you just to bounce right out of the door, right? Oh, I got what I came for. I'm out the door. And whether that be fair or not be fair, you know, should we promote based on, ability or not, you know, and that's all that matters, we can debate that. I'm just giving you a word of advice. If you still feel frustrated, like you're not getting promoted, it's probably better for you to stay where you're at than it is for you to bounce to another gym or another academy. That's just my opinion. It's just what I've seen out of my personal experience. You never know. You could bounce out of an academy which is, let's say, dictated by the average Joe as far as what the rank is, and you're, just a little bit away from getting that next belt or that next stripe, and you might bounce into an academy where there's more of a competition, uh, competitor mindset, where the competitors, the high level competitors of the academy, is what sets the standard. And now, rather than being, you know, just a few degrees from a stripe, you're at the very bottom of the barrel. You know what I mean? So, um, you need to keep that in mind before you bounce to another academy. Okay, reason number two. This is a big one. Okay. And in all reality, this is number two because a lot of times this covers number five, number four, and number three. Like, now we're getting into these next top two reasons. This one, lack of relationships on and off the mat, really cover a ton of those first three. I would say it covers probably about 30 to maybe 40%. Yeah, 30 to 40% of those first three topics. So, number five, four, and three, right? So, for instance, uh, financial responsibilities. If you have relationships on and off the mat with your uh, instructor, with your professor, with your fellow teammates, most likely finances is not going to keep you from training, right? I mean, it just is what it is. You've been training for a while, and say you've been training for a year or longer, and something truly financially catastrophic happens, and you approach your professor. 9 times out of 10, he's going to work with you. You share because you have a relationship with some of your buddies. They're going to tell you, hey, you know what, man, why don't you come by my house? I have some mats, and you know we can do some drilling and stuff like that. So you're not going to completely stop training. So really, the reality is that finances is really it's an excuse. It's an excuse for why you're not training, because if you if you have relationships, you're gonna find a way to train, right? You'll find a way to train. Um, Also, when it comes to injury, again, if you have relationships on and off the mat, people are going to invite you to come back to the academy. You're gonna want to go by the academy even while you're injured, to say, hey, what's up, guys? How you been? How's it hanging? And you guys will you know, shoot the stuff, right, and kind of go back and forth and yap a little bit. Um, through your recovery process, right? So injury, if you have relationships on and off the mat, since your relationship with these people is not just all because of mat, being on the mat, but because you actually talk and hang out, um, you kind of know each other somewhat because you have your discussions after class and things of that nature. Now you're going to be able to continue a conversation and keep yourself immersed in the academy culture while you're doing your recovery. Um, a lot of times, what you'll find is some of the guys in the academy have had the same injury or similar injuries to you, and they're going to be more than happy to help you recover. Even maybe do the whatever level of drilling you can do while you're recovering from your injury. So um, a lot of times the injury thing, again, it falls under this 30 to 40% of the time. um, let's say, uh, frustration, belt chasing. Again, if you have relationships with people in your academy, you're much less likely to uh, allow your frustration in your belt chasing to dictate um, whether or not you continue to do jujitsu, right? It just is not going to be the determining factor. You might remain frustrated. You may talk to these people that you know on the mat that you have relationships with, and you may still feel frustration. But because you have these relationships, these friendships, you're not gonna walk away from jujitsu because that means walking away from your friends. And you're like, man, no, I mean, I'm frustrated, but I like these guys. I like hanging out with them. They're good guys, and you know. Now, does that mean that the people in your academy, have to be your bestest friends in the world, and like you can't have friends outside of the academy? Absolutely not. That's not what it means. It just means that you know. Uh, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that academy owners make is that they don't make or create relationships with their students, and they don't properly advocate and promote relationships between their students in a friendship kind of way, right? You definitely don't ever want to get caught in like the middle of a love triangle or something to that effect as an academy owner, but I'm talking about friendship, right? So I think that that's one of the biggest mistakes that academy owners make. And let's go on to the number one reason why guys quit jiu-jitsu. Reason number one. It's a red pill alert here, guys. Red pill alert. This is going to hurt some people's feelings. This is going to get some people riled up. But red pill. Going to give you the hard red pill truth here, guys. The number one reason guys quit jiu-jitsu is women. That's the reality. Their wife or their girlfriend either implicitly or explicitly give them an ultimatum about jiu-jitsu, and that's why they quit. And I would say this is probably somewhere in the neighborhood between 59 and 40%, right? Somewhere like that. Uh, it's a ton, right? Uh, it 59, 50, somewhere in there. I only like, I would say that other than the relationships, right? Um, this is the bulk reason. Like this is the white whale of reasons why guys quit jiu-jitsu. Now, usually when women give these ultimatums, it is implicit. Yeah. And when I say implicit, I mean Women are very good at emotional communication. They're very good at subtlety, um, and so they'll imply that there is an ultimatum there without expressly saying there's an ultimatum, and then that way they can have plausible deniability when you're like, well, you made me quit jujitsu, and they're like, I never said that, but we all know what they really meant. um, and this is a problem, guys. And the reason why this is a problem is because this is usually behind every other reason. The only reason that doesn't that this does not affect is your ego, which is the belt chasing and the frustration, right? That's the only one that this doesn't generally sit behind. But this generally will sit behind the financial reason. This will generally sit behind the injury reason. And most of all, it will usually be the reason why you don't have relationships on or off the mats with the individuals you train with. Okay? Now, some people are going to go a little bananas. They're probably getting a little hurt. They're probably like, oh, well, my wife and my girlfriend and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Look, man, it's an if the shoe fits statement. However, that being said, if we're being 100% honest, look, I've been doing this for a while now. Okay, been rolling jiu-jitsu for a while now. How many times have you seen a person all the way up to black belt level, because I have seen it, they get involved with somebody, they get involved in a relationship, and all of a sudden, you start seeing less and less and less of that person. And usually how it happens is they talk about this person, awesome, good, great. That the person might actually come to the academy with them a handful of times. Maybe even starts to come in on a kind of semi-regular basis, like, once a week, not always at the same day, but they'll come in and they'll kind of train. They'll poke around, or they'll sit there and watch training, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're the person that you were talking about. Instead of coming in, their usual 4 times a week, they start coming in 3 times a week. Right? And then next thing you know, there's a week where they only come in 2 times a week, and then like 3 times a week, and then like 2 times a week, right? And then little by little, they drop off to maybe, well, I only got to be here like 2 times a week. And then next thing you know, they're gone. And they're like, oh, I got to take a break because we're planning a vacation. Oh, we got to take a break because we're buying a house. Oh, I got to take a break because, well, the thing is that I really like this girl, and this and that, and well, we're having issues, and she, we need to talk, right? Oh, it's not that she has a problem with jiu-jitsu, she just needed to talk to me. No, she has a problem with jiu-jitsu. The reality is she has a problem with anything that does not make her the center of your attention at all times. Okay? Look, guys, this is a word of warning. Okay? This is a word of warning. Unfortunately, whether we want to face it or not, the reality is that in today's culture, okay, women are taught that the way that they process information, the way that their emotional compass goes, which is a feminine model, is right and correct and just. And anything that's outside of that is toxic masculinity. That's what they're taught. Okay? Now, is this every single woman on the planet? No. But is it a big enough majority that you're going to run into this? Absolutely. You need to be very clear and draw some very clear lines when it comes to training jujitsu or whatever it is that you do, right? Maybe it's not jujitsu. Maybe you hunt. Maybe you shoot at the range. Maybe you bowl. Okay? It's all the same. Either you need to lay the foundation and draw the line that either she has to be part of that activity or understand that you are not cutting this activity out of your life. And any woman that manipulates you through either direct means, like directly attacking jujitsu, or implicitly or roundabout attacking your time at jujitsu, like it always seems like she always wants to quote unquote talk. You always have to talk. She always has something that's on her mind. She tends to have her emotional breakdowns right around the time it's time for you to go to jujitsu. That's a red flag, my friends. That is a red flag. Okay? There are things that are more important than jiu-jitsu. But catering to an insecure female is not one of them. All right? So, if we're being honest, the honest truth is the vast majority of guys that quit jiu-jitsu quit because of a woman. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and move on, and let's move on into the next segment. Okay, let's start this segment off. NFL news. The Patriots, they lose again. Broncos defeat the Patriots 18-12, and you know, some people are talking about what does this say about the Broncos? What does this say about the Broncos? Which it's a conversation to have. To me, the story here is what's going on in New England. What is going on in New England, and are we already getting the answer to who really should be getting the credit for the Super Bowl era, the dynasty era of the New England Patriots? I mean, let's face it, the Patriot offense has looked pedestrian, absolutely pedestrian. Okay. And this is with a former MVP. Okay. I get it that Cam, is coming off of some injuries and stuff like that. But nonetheless, Cam was a past MVP. I think that everybody knows that regardless of how much you think the injuries have impacted Cam, he can still be very dangerous. And it seems as though we have given a lot of credit to Brady. We gave a lot of credit, we also gave a lot of credit to Belichick, that he created this coaching system and that Brady was a system quarterback, that the the genius, the hoodie, would put together these amazing game plans, and uh, made these amazing adjustments. We gave a ton of credit to Belichick for that. Well, granted, we're just getting into the true regular season now, because, in my opinion, the first 3 to 4 games of this season you kind of have to toss out the window because, I mean, no mini camps, no preseason. These guys are just starting to click and get each other's true timing down. Well, even given all of that, we've seen that the Patriots' offense is pedestrian. Now, I know Josh McDaniels is the offensive guy in New England. But again, this goes to who really deserves the credit for the New England dynasty era. Because it looks like even with a former MVP, not at his peak or of potential, they can't seem to put together an offensive strategy that can be explosive when it needs to be, that can control the clock, that can look dominant, that can support the defense. Okay, it doesn't look like that's what they can put on the field right now. So where are all these amazing adjustments? Contrary, if you look at Tom Brady, again, former MVP, guy who has won a lot of Super Bowls, but not at his peak. He is adjusting to a very different style of offense in Tampa Bay. They talked about it a little bit last night if you watched the game. Everything, or I guess it wasn't last night, it was yesterday afternoon. Talked about it a little bit during the game. Everything to the types of throws he's being asked to do, the way that he's being asked to read the field, right? They've talked about how in this particular offense, he's asked to read the field from deep to shallow rather than shallow to deep. That's a huge change. I don't know if people understand. If you're a quarterback and you've played, the vast majority of your career reading the field in a certain way, and now you have to read it in the exactly opposite way, that can be a super tough challenge. That's a huge component. Next is how the run game plays in. Next would even be how he's been taking the snap. I thought it was just me. I thought he looked a little bit different, but he looks like he's in a much more square to the line of scrimmage stance, where he used to kind of have like 1 foot cocked back to drop, to take a shotgun snap. Why did that change? I don't understand why that would have changed. Maybe those of you who have played quarterback at a higher level can explain to me why Tom Brady would go from standing with both feet, or I guess I should say with 1 foot cocked back. That seems like a more athletic stance to me, like you're getting ready to either backpedal or run forward, right? Or to a more square, feet are parallel and square to the line. Like, why would you go from one stance to another stance? I don't know. But they talked about it a little bit. I think I overheard them say something about the square stance being more athletic. But I'm not sure, because to me that doesn't make any sense. It just so many more things that you see Tom Brady has adjusted, right? He has adjusted. And the Bucs offense looks good. It doesn't look massively explosive. Like, I don't want to overstate and make it sound like they look like, the super lethal aerial attack Patriots that Tommy had back when Moss was there. Randy Moss was back in New England. I'm not talking that they look like that good, but they do look good. They look strong. They look effective. They look like they can definitely put points on the board, especially if you sleep on them, right? Especially if you get caught up, they're going to put points on the board. So, I think the bigger takeaway, the bigger story right now, um, is what is going on with the New England Patriots, and are we already getting the answer to who deserved the most amount of credit for the New England dynasty era? I think it's really time to have that conversation. Um, you know, the things that the Broncos were able to do, I mean, some of that comes down to the defense, but also a lot of times people forget the offense and defense, right? They're like hand in glove. Um, if the offense is not controlling the ball, it's not giving the defense time to rest. If it's constantly putting the defense in horrible field position, right? It makes it really hard as a defensive coordinator or a defensive player to play comfortably and loose because you're constantly have your back against the wall. You constantly have to play conservatively rather than aggressively. So I think people have to remember that even though, you know, some of this you can put on the defense, I think a huge portion of it comes down to what the offense not being able to do. Right? I actually think that the Patriots defense performed relatively well, even though they lost the game. Right? Even though the Patriots lost the game, I feel like this loss was squarely on the shoulders of the offense. It just, that's, and anybody who, you know, doesn't see that, well, I'll have to disagree, and I think you need to watch the game again because Cam doesn't look great. This offensive scheme looks like people have them figured out already after 4 games in. And you have a couple of things to defend, and then other than that, you'll take your risks. And it seems like teams are doing to New England what New England usually does to other teams, which is they take away the 1 or 2 best things that New England can do on offense and then ask you to beat them with the number 3 or 4 option, and it's just not there. And if this was all about coaching and the entire dynasty was all about coaching, you would not think that would be the case. As a matter of fact, we talked a lot about during Brady's time there about how offensively they would come out and they would attack you with things that you had no idea, right? They used to be a nightmare for fantasy owners because you never knew which running back was going to start, right? You didn't know if they were going to come out and be run heavy or be pass heavy or be screen heavy or be deep ball heavy. Like, you had no idea. And so now you have to really ask yourself, was that more due to Tom Brady being Tom Brady and being able to adapt and understand what the defense was giving him, sticking with the game plan or audibling out? Or was that a lot to do with Belichick? Which one deserves more credit? And I think we're starting to possibly see the answer there. Because let's not forget that Belichick was not a very winning coach before Brady came along. Before Brady, pre-Brady, Belichick was actually a losing record head coach, if I remember correctly. So, just something to keep in mind, guys. All right, man. Let's go ahead and move on to our next segment and wrap it up. All right, final segment. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, guys. weight loss and BJJ. Look, it's not that you can't lose weight in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, but more and more I'm seeing Jiu Jitsu academies try to advertise as though they are a personal trainer or a gym, and they're like, come in and, sign up and get this and that for free and blah, 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 and we will set you up with a meal plan and get in the best shape of your life and blah, 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 right? And I have to ask, is this a mistake on the part of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu academies and marketing? Personally, I think it is. I really don't think that weight loss should be a selling point for Jiu Jitsu. I mean, it can definitely be a byproduct, right? Definitely can be a byproduct. But what happens when these people don't lose the weight that they want to lose, right? Um, so, for instance, we all know that guy that is relatively nimble, is really good. He's probably like a purple belt, maybe even a brown belt. And he's not like obese in the sense that, he can't barely breathe. Obviously, he's doing jujitsu, he's a purple belt, a brown belt. You know, he's relatively nimble, he can move around, but he is overweight. He's definitely overweight. And, you know, he's maybe 5'8" and probably about, 230 pounds on a heavy day. Maybe, maybe 215 on a light day, right? And it's not all muscle, and everybody can see it, and that's fine, right? Nobody really cares. That being said, what if this was one of the guys who came in for weight loss, and he walked in as a white belt, and he was like, okay, and he's working hard, and he's moving around, and whatever. He's not losing weight. Are you going to lose that student, right? That's what you have to ask yourself. If you're going to market being a weight loss facility, you really have to ask yourself if you're going to lose students over it when your students don't lose weight. I think the direct answer is yes, right? I mean, at some point in time, there's going to be when people have problem with a company, it's generally when a company has promised something that they cannot deliver. And so when you start to promise people weight loss and that becomes a focus of why they're training, then that means they get to judge the effectiveness of what you're training by that metric, right? And jiu-jitsu is not a weight loss program. It's not a weight loss system. It's a martial art. It's a self-defense system, right? It's a fighting art. So it should only be measured by that metric. As soon as you start throwing in other metrics about, this, that, and the other, how flexible you're going to be, how heavy you're going to be, how much weight you're going to lose, how fit you're going to be, how, whatever the case may be. Once you start really measuring with different metrics, or you open yourself up to be measured, you claim that these things can be improved upon through training jiu-jitsu, you're going to be measured on that. And so I really feel like it's a mistake. Also, I mean, I don't know who has, I really don't. I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious or whatever, but it's very rare the number of jiu-jitsu academy owners that I come across that actually understand nutrition. And that and here's the thing, I've worked in the industry as a personal trainer, okay? Worked in the industry for a little over a year. Um, Learned about a lot about nutrition and how nutrition programs are put together. Um, how to basically use a real nutritionist to put together your programs and kind of like almost subcontract with them. I come to understand a lot about these certifications. Like you'll see a lot of personal trainers, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a certified personal trainer, and I'm certified with such and such ABC company and or ABC organization, and we're the best, most this and this and hours and that." Look, man, a ton of what they're being taught in those programs is stuff that is pretty cookie cutter. Okay, it's pretty cookie cutter. What you come to realize really, really quickly is that in the personal training industry, is that your person, you yourself, is what really makes your personal training business work or not. Because your coaching, you have to be a good coach. You have to learn how to coach people more than anything else. Okay? That being said, where you're coaching them to lose the most amount of weight, okay? This is a fact, and maybe I'm letting a cat out of the bag, and hopefully a bunch of personal trainers don't get angry with me. But the biggest area of coaching, okay, that you have to coach people on in order to keep them, okay, to keep retention levels high, is in their nutrition. I can take somebody who comes to the gym once a week. I should say I could take somebody. I have taken people who came into the gym like once or twice a week, okay, for 30-minute sessions. That's it. So an hour a week. And if I could get them to buy into, if I could coach them properly, if I could coach them to really follow the nutrition program, I could have 2 times or 3 times the success than the person who comes into the gym, that they would come into the gym 4 times to 6 times a week, half-hour sessions, but would refuse, absolutely refuse to follow the nutrition program. Sorry, guys. So, you can sit there, and if you start as a jiu-jitsu academy to press weight loss, and you're going to start advertising that you're going to provide meal plans and things like that. I mean, honestly, I really don't know a whole lot of academy owners that follow a particular meal plan themselves, much less how to coach to follow a meal plan, that understand nutrition. Because really, that's when you look at a personal trainer, if you want to pick up a personal trainer, the biggest thing you want to pick up is somebody who understands nutrition and the different types of nutrition plans, and what those effects of those nutrition plans are going to be. Like, those are the ones that you really, 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 those are the ones that have value, right? Because, I mean, yes, lifting weights and this stuff is going to help you, and it's going to make you strong and all that stuff, and that's fantastic. But when it comes to maintaining your weight, so much more has to do with your diet, right? And what academy owner has time for that? You're going to switch your focus essentially from coaching jiu-jitsu to coaching people about nutrition? I just really feel this is a mistake. And I'm seeing it start to happen more in the jiu-jitsu community. And I don't know that it's a good idea. I honestly don't. I think that, you know, if we start to adopt this as a community, that we're going to start pushing nutrition, I could see it very quickly taking over. And then of course you get your back and your forth. Oh well, I'm a vegetarian. I can't eat that. Oh well, I'm allergic to pineapples. I'm allergic to. Oh well, you know, I have high. I have a gluten intolerance. Um, Whatever the case may be, right? You name it. There's going to be a reason why they can't follow your nutrition program, and then they're going to want you to customize your nutrition program. Oh, well, I really heard about the keto diet. Oh, I heard the keto diet is horrible for you. Oh, well, I heard about the low carb diet. I heard about the Atkins diet. I heard about the kale soup diet. I heard about the vinegar and oil diet. Like, you name it, right? They're going to all want to bring their thing to it. And they're going to tell you about how that diet doesn't work because it doesn't work for them. And the reality is, it didn't work for them because it doesn't match their personality. It's not going to fit into their lifestyle. It's not something they can do. Oh, I heard about the carnivore diet. Right? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. You're going to run into tons of problems when it comes to, the nutrition aspect. So, as a jiu-jitsu community, we really need to ask ourselves, especially those of us who maybe coach and those of us who maybe are aspiring to be, academy owners ourselves at some point, or those of us who are academy owners, right? Is this really what we want? Do we really want to put yet another iron in the fire? I mean, it's already tough enough sometimes when people want to come in and they're like, well, yeah, I want to train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I also want to train Muay Thai and boxing, and I also want to train this, and I also want to train that, and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, cool, yeah. Well, let's start with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then you have a hard time getting this guy to come into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu classes like 3 times a week. You have a hard time getting him into the fundamentals and foundation classes, every single class that's offered. But he thinks he's going to train boxing and Muay Thai as well. But he doesn't even want to commit to 3 nights a week of jiu-jitsu. Well, that's already enough irons in the fire. Now imagine you're trying to give somebody a meal plan and they're sitting there telling you, well, no, but I want to try the Cindy Crawford diet. Oh, no. Let me try the J.J. Watt diet. No, man. Like, it just... I just feel like it's a whole nother, can of worms that doesn't need to be opened. But that's what I got, guys. That is the show for today. Gonna be trying to do like I did last week and put out little morsels throughout the week. Like I said, be trying to put out more and more content as we go forward. Thank you so much for listening, tuning in. Remember, please, guys, subscribe and comment down below. Hit the notification bell. I'm trying to be a little bit more mindful about asking for that so that we can grow the channel. I didn't know this, but apparently you have to have a certain number of subscribers now to go live, which I like to go live because it's easy to do a couple little quick comments and get off. So hopefully you can get to that subscriber number. So please like, subscribe. Even if you didn't like it, comment down below. Tell me what you didn't like, man. Let's talk about it. All right. Until the meantime, remember, be practical, be purposeful, get with purpose, guys.
Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive. offensive. We're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. People are so stupid.